normally the first indication that we're ready to get started. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Right. Almost there? Are we? Okay. I can do the whole lecture like this. The camera's broken. The joystick for the camera's broken. Okay, so anyone watching at home later on, apologies for this. The joystick on the camera is broken. Anyone ready for more tank videos? Woo! Okay. Yeah, Ronnie has asked that I play one of the videos that did not play last time. I think that was Jeroen? Yes? Yes? Are you here? Jeroen, please, gentlemen. There was one other video that Ronnie wanted me to show, but I just looked at it and I have no idea what's going on, so I'm going to let Andrew deal with that one later on. So I'm going to talk to you today about creating vision for your project. This is essentially your goal for the next 2 weeks. You're looking to create a vision of a game that's going to happen hopefully across this block. But there's a lot of things. It's very easy to say that. It's very easy to say that we're going to set up a vision, we're going to come up with an idea. It's another thing to actually make it happen effectively. And there's a lot of things that the first time you're doing this, you probably don't think about. So we're going to be beating you over the head with the concept of vision all day long today. I'm going to be talking for a little bit. Neville's going to take over, and he's going to talk about his experience, his viewpoint, and then you're going to have Andrew later on, which is focused more on artistic vision and what it means for artists to have a vision within their work in general. So the first steps of a project are always a little bit confusing. You've got all these new people, all these individual heads, individual brains, and they all work slightly differently and they all do slightly different things. And we've spoken about this, you've probably heard me speak about objective versus subjective before in Block A, but this is where it really becomes important, because emotions and opinions and all of those kind of all of these are individual things that happen inside your head. Data, facts, things that you can point to, these are things we can share. These are things that help us make decisions, help us have discussions, and help us keep things reasonable. And so really, when we're talking about how we make our project effective, how we as creators, as creative individuals and creative professionals can move the project forward, we're talking about finding ways that we can reduce the subjectivity of what we're discussing. So we reduce the individual opinions, reduce the things that we can't really share, and we focus on the things we can share, the objective things. What we need is a project vision. We need something that we can point to and say, this is absolutely what we're doing. And we need this, but the thing is, this has to be more than just a game idea. This has to be something that we can point to throughout the whole project and say, this is how we make decisions. Okay, we make decisions based on our vision for the project that we all share and that we're all on board with. So the key to success is that we all share this vision. It's clear to us all. And this is what I want to stress right now. Everyone on the team will probably have their own idea of a vision. Okay, our brains filter the information that we get from the outside world and they process that into ideas, and that filtering process is completely different for everyone on a team. So this period right now is the time when you want to get everyone aligned as much as possible. You can generate an infinite number of ideas. I have no doubt that you are all incredibly creative people. We've been watching these tank videos, and I mean that last one, that came from the brief of here's a tank. The tank needs to get from A to B. I would certainly have never have thought sprout spider legs at the side of the tank and draw a big net between the two. So how do we create a good singular vision that we can share? It's not about one person's opinion. So there are designers out there, they've heard me talk for 3 blocks about this because I'm terrified of it, and it's probably still going to happen this block, that at some point I'm going to have to deal with designers that have gone, no, 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 we're doing it this way. Rah! No, please don't do that. One way that you can filter out this infinite band of ideas is constraints. Who here loves constraints in their projects? Yay, that's more than just the designers. That's good. Constraints are fantastic. The worst thing as a creative person you can have is a blank slate in front of you, because then you don't, what are you going to do? One way you can find constraints is the individuals on your project. So people are all different. They have different personal styles and influences, likes and dislikes, past experiences. And your game's vision, what I said here is your game's vision should reflect the team making it. The fact is your game's vision will reflect the team making it, because if your team are really good at something, then those are the bits that will get done well. And if your team is really bad at something or doesn't like something, they're not going to do that part as well. So you might as well embrace this early. Understand the people in your project more than anything else. So find out what everyone likes, find out what everyone is good at, find out what everyone wants to do. And this helps you understand what ideas are not realistic, what ideas are not feasible for the project. You can also find out what you don't want to do. Your team needs to be passionate. If anyone right now, honestly, if anyone on any team right now is not excited about what they're working on, then something is going wrong and you need to solve that in your team. Everyone should be super excited about this project. I'm super excited about the project. I'm not even in any of your teams. There will be some stuff that doesn't fit the project brief, some stuff that's maybe too close to the original game, some stuff that maybe is outside of the scope, whatever. That's another constraint. So all of these things will help you narrow down all these wonderful, amazing ideas to something that can actually be created. And then it's just a case of picking this. Now, this is where it starts to get difficult. One thing I can really recommend is time limits. So you can debate all the time you want over ideas, but at the end of the day, if you don't make the thing, there's no point in making the decision in the first place. So you have to make decisions in a timely fashion. You have to say, right, we have a pitch next week. We have to have this decision made within the next hour, within the next 2 hours. And if it comes to it, we're just going to flip a coin or we're going to choose things. This is shamelessly stolen from a lecture that Neville gave before, but I think it's perfectly accurate. The usual situation for a lot of people, so this is the flip side of this argument, the usual situation for a lot of people is you're so excited, especially when it comes to things like character design. You've got these wonderful ideas in your head, you're desperate to get them out on paper, so you just start sketching. The minute you start sketching, you start forming ideas and you start getting stuck, okay? So I've been pushing design and production students to do a lot of research when they make decisions. And part of that is just to make sure that you are looking at all the possible options in front of you. So think as much as you can within the time frame, then make decisions. So make sure you're doing your research. Yeah. Getting hung up on inability to make decisions can be a project killer, so watch out for that. Like I said, there are 1,000 decisions to be made every day. There's just constant decisions to be made on your project. So don't get hung up on that one that is sticking with you right now. Just make a decision, or perhaps look at something else you could work on for just now, and maybe the decision will be made for you by decisions you make elsewhere. But don't get stuck on single individual decisions. So, what is in a vision? And nobody is going to say this. Nobody's going to make an Infinity Stone joke. No? Okay. Right. Andrew's probably got a ton of those later on, so please make sure you're ready to laugh heartily. And yep. So this is one of the biggest problems I see. Everyone on the team agrees on a high-level idea. Okay. This is what happens on like 99% of student projects at this point. Everyone agrees on a high-level idea. Everyone's super psyched about this high-level idea. Nobody has a clue how they're going to make it. Okay, just because you all agree that you're going to make an FPS with fantasy overtones and this system involving telekinesis and fantasy powers doesn't mean that you actually all share the same vision of the same game. Okay, and coming up with a way to communicate that vision is effectively what you're doing with this 2-week pitching process. So what you really want to do is find a way that you can communicate the vision that everybody can understand. And one of the most important aspects of that is to make sure that the reasoning behind this vision is clear. So you've made a bunch of decisions, you had reasons for making these decisions. Hopefully those reasons were relatively objective, and you can actually write these down and you can actually show them to people. You can remind them when they start going, oh, why did we end up making the character that way? Well, we made him that way because X, Y, and Z. Visions can start with different things. I'm not sure if did I show has everyone seen these pictures before in a lecture? Yeah, I've been through this before. Cool. Yeah, so these are 2 examples of where I was able to find where the vision of a project actually started. The Last of Us started with a very conceptual idea, an idea about feelings and emotions and tone and all these things. Grand Theft Auto started with a simple little prototype, just some cars chasing each other around. We can use things like the MDA model. This is where this can be really useful because we can take what we've started with and we can use this to fill in the bits that we don't know. So we know, in the case of Last of Us, that it's this kind of deserted wasteland idea. It's all about personal redemption, and we can fill it in backwards. In Grand Theft Auto, we can go the other way, and we can find out how we're going to put this game together. Communicating the mechanics to the dev team is really important. So if you're a designer and you're sitting there talking about your game in terms of, we're going to have spells and we're going to have this great hero and he's going to save the world and he's going to do this, your programmer is already forming a vision for exactly how this is going to work. So you need to have a conversation with them, but that conversation needs to not be about spells and heroes. It needs to be about hitboxes and character controllers and exactly how we're going to actually make this thing work. So we need to understand it all the way over on the mechanics side. You need to use, so this is what you do. You discuss this with your programmers. You discuss this with artists, talk about exactly how it's going to work. Beyond just words is something I want you to think about. You can talk about all this. Sometimes talking about it helps, but sometimes writing it down will help. Sometimes drawing a picture will help. Sometimes diagramming things will help. There's so many different ways that you can communicate these concepts. Apologies, the note that there says designers need to communicate this stuff. We all need to communicate this stuff. You can tell I've taken a lot of these slides from stuff that was originally written for design and production. But keeping tone and feel consistent at the other end of the scale. So how many of you so far have thought about what the tone of your game is? Yeah? All of you? Good. Good. So you need to be able to know, is your game funny? Is your game silly? Is your game serious? Is it grim? Is it going to be tense? Is it going to be scary? So while I'm saying on one end of the scale you're going to be talking about hitboxes, you're going to be talking about character controllers, you're going to understand all the mechanics of how things are going to work, you also need to understand the aesthetic of the game, the tone, the feel. One thing I always like to find, and this is just my personal advice and my personal opinion, I'm what you would call I guess, something of like a method designer. I like to sort of live and breathe the project I'm working on. So if I was working on something like Batman Arkham Knight, then everything we write and every time we talk about the game, we're going to talk about it in a very serious, grim tone. I would be hell to work with on something like Sunset Overdrive because I'd be coming into work with like giant sunglasses on and board shorts and probably take up skateboarding again or something. At the same time, this highlights the individuality of people. I went through this at the Global Game Jam. We were working on a horror game. The first thing I did was queued up a horror playlist in Spotify and turned the lights down and started working in my little glowy corner. Took my headphones off half an hour later, and Jay had like Korean J-pop blasting in the corner. It's like, how can you work on a horror game and listen to this music? But that's his process. I have mine. But when it comes to things that are recorded for the project, I do find it really helps to keep all of this stuff in mind. So even if you're just writing a character design doc or you're writing a level design Bible, keep these kind of things like tone and style in mind. And it will help keep everyone entrenched in what the project's all about and the project vision. So these are two examples that I found. This is part of the documentation from Maniac Mansion, and it had all these sort of goofy little sketches in there that did nothing more than just reinforce the tone and the feel of the game. Similarly, Fallout had this sort of look as though it was like an actual survival guide, which was really cool. Using concept images, I see a lot of bad concept art in my time. I've seen a lot of people who just paint pretty pictures of things and don't really think about this stuff. But concept art can be very, very useful. So, for example, that one at the bottom there is not in any way literally representative of what happens when you play Assassin's Creed. The camera is never at that position. You're never actually looking at it in that style. But it conveys this sense of the sort of dark, smoky world of Syndicate and the kind of feel of the game quite well. There's always a reference that you can use for things. Okay, please never fall into the trap of thinking that you are doing something so utterly unique that it's not even like anything that is out there. It might be so weird that you have to go and dig into something quite obscure to find it. It might even be that you have to look for references outside of games or outside of traditional video games, but you can always find something to refer to. Again, I'm going to steal a couple of slides from one of Neville's old presentations. I really like this one. I've seen a lot of students who make mood boards. What are you doing today? Oh, I'm making a mood board. I'm pulling stuff off Google Images. And this is the kind of thing they make. And it's just like this massive... Can anyone tell me exactly what's wrong with this as a mood board? Anyone?
Is this good or bad? Okay.
Well, yeah, I gave that part away. Anyone got a specific bit of feedback? Alec?
It's inconsistent.
It's inconsistent. That's one thing, yeah.
You can't really see anything.
You can't see anything. It's information overload. This is just, and what is the purpose of this? This doesn't really serve a purpose to the team. Okay, I can't look at this and say, oh, right, that tells me this. The only time I've ever seen this number of images pulled together, they were trying to make a picture out of them by making them extra small. And they're just all over the place. There's really nothing that you can do from this. So no, do not do this. Gather useful reference. So if you're going to point to something, you're going to say, this is a reference for our project. This is some inspiration for our project. Make sure you can tell me or anyone else on the team why it's a reference. What part of this are you using? So, I mean, some of the stuff in here, there's like film stills or something up there. I noticed they've got most of the Die Hard characters in there. Maybe you want your character to have a muddy vest like John McClane did, or you want him to, have that kind of grizzled New York detective look. Then you can pull those images, but make sure you're pulling them for that purpose, and make sure that when I look at those images side by side, I go, oh, you want that New York detective look. I get it. Again, this is me just pushing my favorite ways of working. Before I start any kind of document, I have this obsession with opening up the color palette and selecting what major colors I'm going to use. really love doing this. But this is what I will get distracted by when I don't want to write a presentation. I'll open up PowerPoint, I'll go into the slide master, and I will spend hours picking the right palette for my presentation. But it can be a really good way. There's some games that, if you dig into them, have a really, really strong palette. This is one of my favorites, is Alien, because it has that retro green screen look, contrasted with the sort of very dark environment. Music as well. I mentioned making Spotify playlists. This is something I do whenever I start a new project. I have to listen to something while I'm working, so I'll make a Spotify playlist that reflects the project I'm working on. And sometimes these can be really useful in establishing tone and feel and rhythm. These are specifically asked for in the project brief, because we want to make sure you guys have explored the 3 C's. You've thought about camera view, you've thought about UI, you've thought about the things that are going to be on the screen and what you're going to look at. But these are hugely useful tools. This is actually, I wish I could say this was my work, but this was from a project I worked on. This is the kind of stuff that I would sit with an artist, and they would be sketching stuff, and I'd be going, it's more over here, right? Okay, more over here. It's a bit of a headache, but you get there. So yeah, there are basically hundreds of tools you could use, an infinite number of tools. I've fielded a few questions from students recently about, like, should I be using this tool? Should I be using that tool? You need to explore this world and find what works for you and what works for your team. But make sure whatever you're doing it with purpose, and you're doing it to make sure it's useful. Prototypes are absolutely vital. You should be prototyping early, you should be prototyping often. Do remember that a prototype is not your game. Okay, it's very, very tempting, and you will find people in the industry talking about this, about how you can prototype in such a fashion that it shaves a week off of development time because we reused this bit and reused that bit, and you work modular. That's advanced prototyping. That's very, very smart prototyping. But if you get carried away with that, you miss the point of prototyping, which is to very, very quickly answer a question. Okay? So I would rather you focused on, instead of trying to jump ahead to that kind of stuff, just focus on making throwaway things that exist purely to do one thing, and that's answer one simple question. So is it fun to do something? How long is this going to take? It's a production-based prototype, which people often forget about. So how many programmers here have been asked scoping questions and they have no idea what the answer is? It's okay. I completely appreciate your honesty, sir. I would expect a lot of you will be asked at some point, how long is it going to take to develop this feature? And you're going to go, I don't know. I've never done anything like that before. This is one way you can do it. You know, try and see if there's a way you could develop something that is maybe only going to take an afternoon, that's going to give you an idea of how long it would take to develop this if it was a full feature. And that is part of the prototyping process. Obviously, the gameplay prototype that we're looking for in 2 weeks is going to prove the question, do my mechanics work? And is this a feasible project? So it kind of answers 2 questions. Also, I've been asked quite a lot about paper prototyping. So yeah, we do expect there to be a digital prototype component when we get to the pitch in 2 weeks, or next week. But there's nothing stopping you paper prototyping ideas at the same time. Sometimes that can be a more appropriate way of answering the question of whether something's fun, or whether people engage with it in the right way, or whether they get the right experience out of it. Prototype quick, prototype dirty, prototype early, and prototype often is what I always say. Okay, so besides, that's all sort of to do with creativity and the idea that we have. Besides the idea that we have, we also need to actually make our project. So every team is completely different, and when we all collaborate, we need to find a way to fit all our working practices together. And this is also a kind of vision. This is a product vision, management vision. What is the best management structure for your team? What communication methods should you use? What production methodology are you using? Now, we made some recommendations in the project brief about this, but we were very keen not to specifically dictate which system to use. And that's because every team is going to be different, and every team is going to have things that work for them and things that don't work for them. What we're looking for from you is that you make good, smart, professional decisions. And the decision to use Scrum because we said to use Scrum is not a good, smart, professional decision. Understand what works for your team and what doesn't. This is the same as I said about the creative side of things. If your team don't like micromanagement and they don't like you, or anyone telling them everything needs to be done, then give them the freedom. You guys need a bit of freedom. You guys need that creative flair. If you're like me and you like a nice list of tasks written out for you, then maybe we need to go with that, or we need to go somewhere in between. But make sure that people understand why decisions are made. So don't just kick your project off and say, we're going to do stand-ups every day because stand-ups. Explain why you're making these decisions. Has everyone got some kind of stand-up system in place? Yeah, most of you, some of you, okay. It's highly recommended. I really would be surprised if after this 2-week period, you're not all on a team that has some kind of stand-up in place at some point during the day. So I want to explain why you have stand-up meetings and why you don't just sit down at a table. Yeah, so it's awkward and quick. For those of you that are wondering, we call it a stand-up because everyone has to stand up, and everyone has to stand up because nobody likes standing up, and it makes sure the meeting isn't going to last more than a few minutes. So yeah, again, the same way there's so many tools that you could be using, hundreds of different tools, you don't have a specific tool that you have to use for this. Yes? How do you stop stand-up from being half an hour anyway? The fastest way to do that is to nail down exactly what it is that you're going to be talking about before you even start. So understand the purpose of the stand-up is, and it's normally just to answer a couple of simple questions, which is, what have you worked on yesterday, what are you working on today, and do you need anything from anyone else? That's the common three questions to ask. And if anybody starts trying to answer questions more than that, you need someone who is normally the Scrum Master, who will deal with that at the stand-up and say, nope, that's not what we're talking about here. If we want to have a discussion about that, we'll have to have an actual meeting, which means it needs to be scheduled because it's going to take time out of the day, etc., etc. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So, working with a vision. This is really short, and I'll let Neville up to deliver his part of the presentation. You need to respect the vision for the project. So every time you make a decision, you need to think about what you know of the project vision, of the management vision, of all of these visions that you have for the project. I need to say, is this decision I'm making in keeping with this vision? And if it's not in keeping with the vision, don't make that decision without talking to the rest of the team. This is where all miscommunications start. So if you come across a decision that you have to make in your work and you think, actually, creatively, I cannot make this decision because I'm not sure about this part of the project, then you need to speak to the team. If you need to do something, you don't understand the process for doing this within the team, you need to speak to the rest of the team because there are issues with the vision and these need to be sorted as soon as possible. Okay. Are there any questions about this part so far? Nope. Okay, then I'm going to hand over to Neville and let him talk about his part. Oh, thank you. That's not necessary every time, but thank you.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yep.
Okay, guys. The things I want to talk about have a lot of overlap with what Alan just said, right? I'm looking at it from a little different point of view. And also the purpose of what I'm going to do is I want to check whether you've been listening to what Alan has been saying or whether you're just waking up, right? Or maybe a little bit of both. Okay, so I added this because this is one of my favorite quotes, right? Can you complete it? You don't need eyes to see, you need what? All together? Vision, exactly. And you need one of those, right? Do all of you have one of those? Yes? Fine. Okay, it's cool to say, yeah, we have vision, right? And probably a lot of you think you have vision. But how do you know? How do you know you're onto something? Anyone? When you feel it, I have someone saying here.
Like when you're excited for something, then you feel you have something.
Yes, that's right. You need to be excited. Alan already said it. If you just come up with an idea and you say like, yeah, I have an idea here, we're going to make a game and it's with cars and racing, right? It's not really, there's no excitement, right? But if you're like, this is going to be the next racing game and our cars can like flip over and they can ride the ceiling, and you're copying roll cage, right? But nevertheless, you need excitement, right? What's another good sign that you have vision? What's your name? Johnny, that's very good. Yes. So could you rephrase that? When you say you got to see it happening, what do you mean by that? Yeah. So if I would tell you like, if you close your eyes, what do you see? Nothing. That guy doesn't have vision. Just finish my sentence. You gave the answer, but I just want to hear it a little bit more artistically. If you have vision and you close your eyes, what do you see? You see the game finished. You know exactly what it's going to look like in the end. If that's happening, then you have vision. So I'm going to go through some of the things we've talked about. So basically, whether those are the graphics, and in my case, I'm a graphic artist, so I will see the colors and the shapes and the movements and the flow and whatever, right? But that could also be like, if you're a designer, you see the gameplay. You have to do this and this and this, and then at that moment you have to jump, and then yes! You feel it, right? You do that in your head. Does that sound familiar to some of you? Yes? That's good. Good. Okay. You're convinced it will work, even if it's complete shit. But you need to believe it, right? That's important. You feel excited. Thank you, Niels. There's one thing that happens to you, and I'm sure that everyone that has encountered vision has had this moment. You wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, oh, yes, I know how to fix this. You write it down, and you go back to sleep. Right? How many of you have had that? Yes. Of course you know, like, now I have to raise my hand, right? Okay. And then you wake up in the morning. Hey guys, shh, I'm talking. Then you wake up in the morning and you read again your idea and it's like, oh, maybe it's not so good after all, right? But nevertheless, the fact that you had that moment, it's a good sign of vision being present. Basically, if you boil down all these things, you're taking ownership. You're not just making something for a client because the client asked to do that. This is your thing. And with your, I don't mean, to come back to Alan's word, the individual, but your as a team. You're creating something cool, and you know it. Okay, so you have vision. Cool. Now what? Let's say, because I don't want to confuse you, let's say that you're like at the very beginning of a project, and like you all are, and there's one person in the team that like is like, yes, I'm onto something. This is really cool. What's next? Yes? Exactly. You have to communicate this, and that's not a very easy thing to do in a lot of cases, but because like in a lot of cases you think like, yes, this is so cool, but maybe it's not very cool. And maybe it is really cool, but it's hard to explain. Right? What is important when you explain this? And when you communicate with the team? What are the, and you've been doing this in the last few days, right? Communicating, talking about vision, sharing ideas. What have you encountered? Doesn't necessarily have to be positive. Yes?
The ideas change like on a minute.
Yes, the ideas change on the minute. Is that good or bad?
Neither.
Yes. Can be bad, can be good, yeah, fine. I think it's good that you are able to change, and that I think if you say the idea does not change anymore, I made my vision and this is it, right? That's not good, I would say. So if you say it changes, I would say that's good. Someone else?
Same different thing in mind, in reality it's like slightly different vision for different people. So when you talk to here, you're like, well, I actually have this in mind, you have this in mind, it's maybe a good idea as well.
Yeah, so what are you doing there?
You basically try to communicate your vision, but your peer has a different vision from yours.
Yeah, so how do you solve that?
Well,
You're gonna fight, right?
you're going to try to find it when you're going to communicate.
No. You started out well. You said like, I have one vision, like I'm the artist, I want everything to be blue, right? I don't care what, it needs to be blue. And then the designer says like, yeah, but it can't be blue because like the player has got to do that, and when you use blue, it's going to give the wrong intentions and whatever, right? So what are you going to do? What's important? Jasper. Sorry? Yes? Compromise is a dirty word. Huh? I never like compromise, because when you say compromise, it's like you're breaking down your idea. But I think it's the right answer. The thing is, Sandra. Yes, it's a good thing that you look at it objective. So basically, yeah, those are all good answers. You said a good thing, you said a good thing. Lael, last one? Yes, but let's say the designer has a vision, the artist has a vision. What do those two visions need to do? Sorry? They have to become the same. They have to do this, right? They don't have to do this. So, first of all, communicate to others. Make those visions compatible. Make them work together. Another really important thing, like let's say that, and in a lot of cases, I'm not even saying in a lot of cases, in most cases, like there's like one or two vision holders in the team. There's a few persons that are like really like, I see this happening, I know what we have to do. Are you willing to follow me, right? And then there's a lot of people in the team that say like, yeah, it's cool. I just want to cooperate on this vision, right? But what is really important, and some people of you, how many of you have already worked on team projects? Yeah, that's a lot of people. That's good. So then you know that there's like, not everyone can be the vision holder, right? There's a few people that hold the vision, and they communicate that vision, they make the vision work, and like, there's going to be a number of artists that execute the vision, right? What's really important for those artists, or designers, or whatever, people that work on the game, what is important for them? That's true, they need a clear understanding, but I can also be a dictator and say like, listen, you, this is my vision, you're going to make this, end of story, I don't need your opinion. Exactly, they need to be just as excited as the rest. So what is important if you have a vision and you communicate it to others? What's important for those other people? Yes? They need to agree with it and more. Next to, you also raise your hand. No? Someone else. If you work on a project, what do you want? Yes? Yes, those people also need to be able to make it their own. They also need to take ownership. So, when you have a vision and you see this project in your head, you know, if I would make that character, it would look like this, and it would have these proportions and these colors. But the person that's going to make it does not look into your mind. So you have to allow interpretation of your vision. Right? It does not have to be exactly what is in your head, but it needs to be in line with what is in your head. That's really important. A lot of projects go wrong because the people are not involved. And why are they not involved? Because they feel dictated. And that's not good. You need to have them become co-owners. If that is not the case, then this will happen. And this happens in a lot of projects, and I'm sure that it already is happening in some of your projects. So if you detect this, you know this is wrong. right? And think of this lecture and change it. Yes. Yes. Guys, could you be quiet? There's someone who has a question.
When you have this question here, this concept and you have this idea and you start making all of these cool things in your mind, how do you notice you're going way too far away from where the project is right now? So for example, if you are only making prototypes and you're already way ahead of the prototype saying that the game's going to work like this, please not do it, is that bad? Do you have to stick to the project schedule?
That sounds like a lot of questions in one question.
My question is just how do you avoid your vision take you out of the project timeline? Saying I'm not going too way ahead of what you know now.
Who could answer that question? Did you guys hear the question? The question was like, if you are looking at the hour, if you have a vision, right, and you have something in mind, and you're starting to brainstorm, and you're trying to come up with cool stuff that all fits into the project, how far are you allowed to divert from the timeline? That's the question, right?
Yeah, how far can you go?
Who could answer the question? Yes.
Trying to communicate your new ideas with your teammates and just maybe they tell you that they can't. So then they limit your...
And if you say try to communicate with your teammates, who is supposed to do that?
the person with the new vision.
The vision holder. I think one answer to your... I think there are several answers to your questions, and I think Alan also wants to answer that. Okay, I think one thing that I think is also very important as a vision holder, you're not just the guy with all the ideas and like that just goes all the way and creates complete chaos, right? That's not good. You're also making sure that whatever your artists are doing, that it stays within the boundaries of your vision, and that it also, once you hit the mark, it's like, okay, this is it. Now we have to move on, because we have limited resources, right? Is that answering your question? But it's definitely a good thing. Once you see that there is a creative process that starts developing and it's like, ooh, it's blossoming like a plant, don't stop that, because that's what you need, right?
Yeah, I've spoken a few times before about there being creative and project-based decision making, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. So, as far as like how far can you go with coming up with ideas, and when should you come up with ideas? You should always come up with ideas, and you can always do that. All the way from the first day to the last day on a project. Never censor yourself. Never sit there and think, oh my God, I can't think about, we're a month away from releasing Horizon Zero Dawn. I can't think about how cool it would be if we implemented massive flocks of animals or something like that. That's just my idea for what I want to see in Horizon Zero Dawn 2. But anyway, but if you came up with that, a month from the end of the game, don't stop yourself, don't censor yourself and say, I can't think about that. We maybe can't implement it in the project, but write it down, talk about it with the rest of the team, and then you get that creative versus project balance where ultimately in most big teams you have a designer who will hold a creative vision and he'll look at your idea and go, yeah, actually it does enhance the creative vision. And you've got your producer who'll look at the project plan and go, yeah, but we've only got a month to release, so it goes on what we call the backlog. But never actually just stop the idea dead in its tracks. Nick?
To reply to Thomas' question or build on it, I think the main part of the question was how do you handle or react to people sort of going out of the boundaries?
Yeah, well, as you make these decisions, Neville might actually have a different answer to this, but as you define pipelines for ideas as much as everything else, and as you're defining parts of the vision, you're making decisions, and you should have a reasoning behind making those decisions. So if someone comes in with a whole new idea that actually pivots away from where you are, you just have that, you have to fall back on that objective decision making.
But how do you try if someone is going out of the vision for whatever reason, how do you sort of try to get him back in without sounding like a dictator?
Well, the two things I would suggest is ask ask them why they think this is a good idea, and ask yourself why you don't think it's a good idea. Because at this point, your project vision should be like super malleable. It should be able to change and become anything else. So if a member of your team, I'm not even sure if you are talking about a specific example, but all right, okay. But if at this stage anyone comes up with a whole new idea that pivots away from where you were before, again, just put your producer hat on for a second and say, do we have enough time to pivot the whole idea right now? And do we all agree this idea is better than the other one? And if you do agree, then you pivot. And if you don't agree or you don't have enough time, then okay, we're going to have to stick to the original.
I think that's a yeah. I would go with that answer also. Like there is limited resources, and you have to ask yourself, like in the end, does it pay off? Will we be able to finish our project? And if it endangers the finishing of the project, it's not good, even if it's a better idea.
Yeah, well,
I think it should.
yeah.
I think it should. Like vision is, it should.
It comes down to that
It should.
production resource, really.
Because the thing is also like that's specifically something that you need a vision holder for. A vision holder is pointing the direction, because you're a whole bunch of people and you can go any direction, but someone has to decide, and he has to be able to pull all the rest of you with him or her, and from then on you go that direction, right? Because you want to survive. Yes, for your project also. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about that after, because I won't be able to finish my lecture, okay? There's two things that you, and also the next thing that I'm going to say also answers a little bit to those questions. Like there's two things that you have to be aware of, two characteristics of every person. And to be more specific, there's two things you have to kill to make sure that everything remains streamlined and that the vision is going the right direction. Two things you need to kill. We talked bugs. That's a programmer. That's later on. Oh, it's Bert. Ik dacht dat het student was. But yeah. Come on, guys. You know that just like you all knew the quote, you don't need eyes to see, you need vision. You also know this line, and you know it. Kill what? Kill your ego. That's the first thing you need to kill. Right? But that goes to the point where you say there should not be a dictator, so kill your ego. Another thing that answers Nick's question. What is also something that you need to kill at some point when you have different visions, and those visions are both cool, but you chose one specific direction, and that other vision, no matter how cool it is, it cannot blend completely. You have to make a choice. What do you have to kill there? The ideas that don't fit. That's right, but there's also a specific quote. Your babies, yeah, your darlings. Kill your ego, kill your darlings. Right? Because that idea, you said that. That's basically what you meant, right? Kill your darlings, kill your babies. Okay. Please keep this in mind. My next question. Guys, can I have your attention? Why do you need vision? What is it safeguarding? Yes? Coherency, I would use consistency. True. Your project will be consistent if you follow the same vision. Someone else? Yes, getting lost. I would say if you have the vision, then you have a clear direction. So you won't get lost. That's the second thing. What else? There's something really... Quality. Yes, and could you what do you mean with quality? Quality can be different things.
Well, I think you guys were vision is not right, and it's like the concept is in the beginning is like it's still there, but it's a piece of shit.
But when you say piece of shit, what do you mean? You mean because quality could be okay. Oh, look at the resolution difference between this texture and that texture. Oh my God, didn't you see that? And it's happening over and over and over. That's true. Like a vision holder should also be able to say, like, listen, quality of this all the quality should be at the same level. That's also a little bit consistency, right? But there's goes down. Yeah, true, true. But there's something else that's really important. Yes, what did you want to say? Okay, there's something else that's really important if you create anything. And you have to think about the fact that you guys are all making little game projects that after 2 weeks all those projects will be halved, right? Half of you won't make it. And you will be merged with other teams. And after 2 more weeks, half of you will again be merged. On the basis of what will you be merged or not? Leo. Yes, but that's not so important. It's good that you document stuff, that everyone can at all time go back to documentation and see like what's the pipeline, what's the vision. That's right. But for the project, Nick.
Will be assessed on how clear our vision is of the end. That's how you will get cut or not get cut.
Yeah, but that's just one step up to a bigger purpose. Yes. Yeah, it's a bit confusing because when I say you will be judged and you will be graded, you all know that like the main thing that we will be assessing you on is teamwork, right? So maybe you are also a little bit confused by my question now because, okay, it's true, teamwork, but your teamwork will also reflect, if you do well as a team, it will reflect in the product you make, right? If your team is like not led and there is no vision, then the project is probably going nowhere. In the back. Yes, that's definitely true. That's definitely true, based on how fun the project is. I'm going to have one other answer, and then I'm going to give the answer. Feasible, yes, feasible is also important. But you will not be canned or not based on the feasibility, right? Because when it's not feasible, then you could have a number of things you do to make it feasible. But it needs to be worth to think about changes to make. No, the thing that I want to get to is you want your project to stand out. You want your project to be the one that we say, oh, I don't want any of the other projects. I just want this because this is awesome. Right? Does that make sense? So, clear direction, you need to stand out, and it safeguards consistency. And also quality, and also a number of other things that I've heard people say. Okay, some practical examples of good vision. You guys know this game? Which game is this? Crossy Road. You guys all know Crossy Road, right? Okay. No? Okay. Well, nevertheless, it's a small project made by a very small team, comparable to the teams that you are forming, right? And they made a million-selling project, right? But the thing I want to be pointing out, first of all, it looks very distinguishable, right? It's very recognizable, and it's also very consistent. If you look at any of those characters, you immediately see they belong to the same game. And another thing that a lot of you guys have been talking about is you can immediately see that the people making this had a lot of fun, right? Or not. Okay, I hear mixed emotions. Another example, which game is this? Little Big Planet, yes. Okay, also very consistent in everything they made, right? What kind of style do they use? And okay, I'm talking about art now. What did they take as a thing to stand out? Yes, this typical handicraft style. And at the moment when they did that, you saw in different kind of commercials, like commercials for hamburger. In Belgium we have Quick, but you guys don't know that, of course. It's something like Burger King. But all their commercials were made in this handicraft style. And different other commercials also started using that style because they started it, right? So that vision was radiating over the project. Okay. Which one is this? Team Fortress. Oh, that's like more response. Team Fortress. Also very consistent. It's not new. It's very Disney-esque the way those characters were designed, but very consistent and very appealing, right? Clear vision. Okay. I saw a video yesterday, and when I saw it, I thought immediately of the project you were doing. And the thing that happened in this video, is there a lecture here at 11? Yeah, okay. Shit. Anyway, I'm gonna still show this. Okay, so basically what the guy that had the vision for this project, and it's not a game project, he took an existing game, I'll call it a game, and he had a vision to change it, just like you guys are doing. And it's so awesome! And I don't have sound. Ah, shit! Wait. Oh, I lost it. I go again? My bad. This is not my computer. Ah! Make it work. And I need sound.
I think that might.
Okay, it's a pity there's no sound, but look at what they did to skating. Do you see what they did?
Oh yeah, wheelbase.
Oh my god, I want it! Who of you snowboards? And who of you, when you come home, think like, shit, I want snow because I can't do this until next winter? Every one of you that snowboards, right? So, oh, this is genius. They just took an existing game and added a direction to the player movement, right? But what's the difficulty in this case? Because it's not a virtual game, right? Where is the difficulty in this? Not all at once. Someone? Yes? Shh. Physical limitations, exactly. So you really have to think like, how can I technically make this feasible? What can I do? So they added an extra set of wheels underneath, right? But okay, we have to stop here. I just have a little bit more to this lecture, which I will do at the beginning of Thursdays. No, that can't. I'll see when, but we'll do that later. Okay.